Traders, how are you? Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader. Today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. On Monday, we had markets that were higher, building on gains from last week where we had that really great, strong jobs report. Tuesday, the markets were lower. Investors are starting to worry about the situation with the second wave of the coronavirus. We'd also have a lot of different states now that are starting to shut down, Florida, Texas, Louisiana as well. Wednesday, we had the president of the St. Louis Fed president. If you guys don't know, the central bank in the United States, it's split into certain offices. St. Louis is one of them. He said that the jobless rate in the U.S. could be in single digits by the end of the year, possibly around 7%. One of the things that I always say, though, in regards to these assumptions is that they have no idea what they're talking about. If you guys remember the central bank president of the time, Ben Bernanke, there were some memes online that show, he was called the Ben Bernanke. Basically, he said everything was great. Everything's great right before the crisis, the financial crisis. So they either don't know what they're doing or they do know what they're doing and they're just lying about it because they can't tell the truth. And I think it's a second option. So we'll see what actually does happen. On Thursday, markets were mixed due to the coronavirus fears. Friday, we did start off negative, but we ended higher due to good news in regards to the remdesivir drug from Gilead Sciences. They had some good news, and NASDAQ posted a sixth record closing high in 7 days. Overall for the week, the Dow was up 0.95%. Overall, it's down 8.63% for the year. S&P 500 is up 1.75% for the week. It's still down 1.42% for the year. And then the NASDAQ is up 4.01% for the week. It's up an amazing 18.33% for the year. Overseas market news followed most of the U.S. markets as well. The Swiss market was the biggest winner in Europe at 1.02% positive. The biggest loser, I should say, it's Spain at 1.12% negative. Latam, the biggest winner was the Merval in Argentina. They're shut down big time in regards to the coronavirus. Colombia and Argentina both aren't opening their borders until August 31st. They were 7.51% positive. The biggest loser, I should say, was the index in Santiago at 4.28%. In Africa and the Middle East, Nigeria was the only negative, a small 0.12% negative, and Egypt was up 1.78%, which is the biggest winner. Asia and the Far East, the SEC market in China was up 7.31%, and for all the traders that we have there in the Philippines, that was the only negative market at 2.82%. In Bitcoin and cryptocurrency news, the market still hasn't had a really big run, even though we had the halving, I believe it was 7 weeks ago. And one of the things that I think is, I did this video on the Spanish side. You guys know that we have a lot of traders in Latin America. Why I don't invest in Bitcoin, for example. I think that what it's going to turn out to be is going to be very different from what a lot of people think. Everybody on the Bitcoin space, they're religious about it. It's like they go crazy when you say, no, it's not going to be what you say it is. So I think, one of the things that I always say to you guys to be able to learn how these things work is pay attention to what people say. Don't pay attention to what people say, pay attention to what they do. And the markets are the same. We've had now a series of situations. We had the financial crisis in 2009. Before that, in the 85, I believe we had another situation as well where gold and silver spiked. Now we're starting to see gold starting to take a bit of a run up, right? The uptrend is confirmed now. And in this situation now where we have an economic crisis, we don't see Bitcoin going up. Even after the halving, when a lot of analysts were saying that it's going to go up, because it's always going to get to 50,000, right? Just always in the future. So one of the things that I find really peculiar now is that if Bitcoin is the safe haven that everybody says it is, why isn't it going up like gold and silver? Right? It should be above 10K or maybe even 12, right? It should, but it's not. And that's something that, if you want to invest in Bitcoin and make a little money, it's fine. It's up to you. I can't tell you what to do. We're not trading advisors. It's only education. But just something to think about, because I think that kind of tells the story, even though a lot of people are saying different, of what Bitcoin could possibly be. For the week, it's at $9,279.10 and went up 2.07% for the week. In financial and banking news, Mexico had higher than expected inflation. According to the central bank, was at 4% instead of 3.7%. The left-leaning Obrador, the president, otherwise known as AMLO, has not been doing a great job in the country. They were actually the only country last year that dipped into a recession for a quarter, very small, but nonetheless, the decisions he's making isn't doing very well. Typical of the left. Tesla CEO, big news. Elon Musk just passed Warren Buffett to become the 7th wealthiest person in the world. He owns 20.8% of Tesla stock. It reached a record high to $1,544. It went up 10.8% last week. I just think it's amazing that the company doesn't make any money. And it's literally shooting through. What I feel bad for is the Tesla short sellers, because it's going through the roof. JP Morgan, which is the largest bank in the United States, states that it should continue to rise due to the fact that they're expecting that Tesla is going to start making between 130 to 140,000 cars every quarter by the end of the year. Right now, they're making just 90,000. They assigned a valuation of 1,500, and it also thinks that their revenues are going to increase to $100 billion by 2025. Musk also said that they're very close to achieving autonomous driving capabilities, level 5. Level 5, if you don't know what that is basically full automation where there's no humans deciding anything or holding onto the wheel. It's completely without a driver, and the steering wheels are optional. So that would be great if that actually happened. Chinese Banking and Insurance Regulatory Commission, say that 3 times fast, is saying that domestic banks should brace for a surge in bad loans, obviously due to the economic crisis due to the coronavirus. They're noting that a significant deterioration of asset quality between some small and mid-sized financial institutions was starting to accelerate. And they stated that a lot of the profits for the bank probably are not going to be as good, and some actually might start losing money. Germany's economic minister Peter Altmaier is saying that the same situation that happened with Lufthansa, where they loaned 9 billion euros to Lufthansa, the airline in Germany, which owns some other regional ones as well, and they took a percentage of ownership of the company, that they're going to actually do that with probably a few dozen other firms to ensure that they don't go under due to the situation in the coronavirus. In commodities, the IEA, the International Energy Agency, is saying that the first half of 2020, oil demand is plunged by 10.75 million barrels a day, which is down 11% year over year. But they're forecasting that it's going to be a lot less in the second part of 2020 to just 5.1 million barrels per day. So it's going to be a smaller decline than what they thought it would be. Overall for the week, U.S. crude is up 0.57% to $40.55, still down close to 34% for the year. International Brent was up 1.02%. $43.24, still down 34.62% for the year. Precious metals, as I mentioned to you guys as well, gold went above $1,800 an ounce. It went to a 9-year high. Silver is surging as well. I don't know if you guys remember that video that I posted on YouTube where I talked about the big loss that I was holding through all of those positions, and have now been closed with a positive gain, and I have one more left, which should probably fill at the end of this week. Don't forget as well to like the video if you guys are listening here on YouTube or maybe on Instagram. It helps with the algorithm, so I'll leave your like there on the video. Other than that, silver, as I mentioned, went up, surged to $19.40 an ounce. It did a close, if I'm not mistaken, below $19. It finished at $18.78 for the week. That's up 3.64%. Gold up 1.35% to $1,799. The rise in gold prices, Goldman Sachs is saying that, gold has soared at 19% in 2020, and it's reaching the previous high that it reached in 2011 of $1,921 an ounce. Political news, the Canadian Prime Minister, the left, is in pressure again due to the situation where his family was involved in receiving money from charities upwards of $600 million. Definitely not a problem having the family of the president get money from charities. Other than, if you guys don't remember, this is actually the second time, not the first, that this is actually happening. And the U.S., whatever side you're on, I try not to get political here when I do these videos. So whether you're left or right, Obama, Trump, hate, love, doesn't matter. The opinion polls are saying that Vice President Biden has a wide lead in the upcoming election for the president that's going to come later this year in November. It's just 4 months away, but I do want to remind you that they may not be correct. If you guys remember Brexit, they were saying that they were going to be overwhelmingly voting to stay in the EU. You remember the last election where they were saying that Hillary Clinton was going to win by an overwhelming amount, and Trump eventually decided the election and he won. So I wouldn't put too much, listen to a grain of salt when it comes to those polls. In economic news, the World Bank is expecting that Russia is going to shrink by 6% this year, which is the worst since 2009, due obviously to the coronavirus pandemic. Their falling main export, which is oil, has a lot to do with it, and they're expecting them to go back to growth in 2021 and 22. The U.S. Labor Department is saying that 1.31 million Americans filed for state unemployment benefits last week, down from 1.43 claims, which is good. It's going down. The economy, the estimated was actually 1.38 million claims. And obviously, labor market in the tenure situation due to the coronavirus. Producer prices unexpectedly fell in June, dropping 0.2% last month as the rising cost of energy goods were offset by the overall weakness in services, indicating subdued inflation. And this is important because it's going to allow the Fed to continue pumping money into the system to avoid any downward spiral. And I would anticipate this is why it's so hard to remove an incumbent president, meaning if there's already a president, it's really hard to unseat him. That's why in most elections, it's always been, Republican or Democrat before it actually switches the other way, because they can actually go and spend money and, where they need to or where they need to get votes. So expect the Fed to continue doing that. We'll probably see continuing rise in the stock market, even though I do believe that we're starting to reach the upper levels of where it's going to be. In corporate news, Uber has acquired food delivery rival company called Postmates in a $2.65 billion all-stock deal. Postmates has 8% of the market, and by fusing the two, they're going to be the second largest after Deliveroo, I think the name was of that one. Walgreens, the U.S. retail pharmacy giant, is going to fall over 7% to $40 a share on Thursday. They were hit by a charge of $2 billion and look to lose some 4,000 jobs. Bed Bath & Beyond is also in trouble. They went down over 20% on Thursday to $8.27. They've posted a $302 million loss in the first quarter. And the fiscal quarter loss, not the quarter one. And the revenue declined to $1.31 billion from $2.57 billion a year ago. They're gonna start planning to shut 20% of stores. It's a lot. Shares of Netflix surged 8% on Friday to a record 550. They have benefited from the situation on the coronavirus because everybody's home. They don't know what to do themselves, so they pop up Netflix. They had 182.9 million subscribers at the end of quarter one. In trade news, the economic fallout of COVID-19 raises doubts that China is going to be able to buy the goods that they agreed to in the first phase of the trade agreement with the U.S. As of right now, they have only bought $2 billion of energy from the U.S. so far in 2020, when they were supposed to buy $25 billion. Trump also says that he's no longer confident that they're going to be able to agree on a second phase of a trade deal as well, noting the coronavirus pandemic by the Chinese government, which it's damaged the already strained relationship between the two. Countries and companies globally are being caught in a fight between China and the U.S. when it comes to technologies. A lot of the companies and countries are being forced to pick sides, whether it's China or the United States. The latest one to be targeted is TikTok, which has hundreds of millions of followers, and Trump and even one of the members of the Trump administration also said that they were actually looking at banning TikTok from the U.S. In technology, China has a 2020 mission to go to Mars called Tianwen-1. They want to put a rover on the surface, as well as put a probe to be able to orbit the planet as well. They're scheduled to launch between July and August of 2020 and begin operation on Mars in February 2021. And in investment news, Canadian biggest banks have confirmed the boycott of Facebook. If you guys know that a lot of companies have decided to stop putting ads on Facebook, which isn't a very good thing for Facebook because the majority of their revenue is from ads. It's not like Google where they've had other assets now that they can make money off of. And it's just another one of the companies that have joined on board they're saying that to take steps to block hate speech. Group of European Digital Advertisement Association are criticizing Apple's plans to put up a new pop-up on every single app that is downloaded to actually give the person the approval or the deny whether you want them to share your information and be tracked when you're not using the app itself. Obviously, they don't like it because they're illegally sharing all of our information anyway. So they don't want that because then they won't be able to do it. And in first major acquisition since the arrival of the coronavirus, Warren Buffett spent $9.7 billion in natural gas storage and transmission assets from Dominion Energy. He also, if you guys don't know, 43% of his stock portfolio in Berkshire Hathaway, of all his portfolio, is in Apple, which is not a good idea. I don't know if you guys remember last year, I talked about how Warren Buffett probably isn't going to make the best decisions, and it doesn't look like he's been doing a lot of great decisions recently. Tyson Foods, the largest U.S. meat firm by sales, is currently relying on 122,000 workers to be able to process what is 20% of the chicken, beef, and pork that's produced in the United States. The coronavirus revealed a lot of their strain and, let's say, vulnerabilities in their supply chain, and now they're looking into robotics to be able to go ahead and solve some of those, especially since they always said that. One of the things I read in the article is that they said that the people are actually cheaper than the robotics because they do a much better job because they can literally get all of the meat off of the bone, and also the lesser quality meat can go to other things where a lot of these robots haven't been able to do that, but now obviously they'll be able to. Other than that, Goya Foods CEO Robert Unanu refuses to apologize in the face of a boycott. He's saying that he recounted the participation in the events of the Obama administration and did not receive a political backlash. He also says that it's a censorship of free speech. And a growing number of residents leaving New York City rental market took a beating in June. The vacancy of rental apartments in Manhattan hit a record 3.67%, more than double what it is a year ago, highest level in decades, and the number of apartments listed for rent in Manhattan also had a record jump as well. The inventory went up by 85% from last year, and this is going to be something that's pretty serious because I don't think people are going to want to live in cities anymore. For the first time in 6 years, 2 U.S. Navy carriers are in the South China Sea as tensions mount. The latest show of military might by the U.S. as China is trying to sweep claims that they own the entire South China Sea. They're actually there's laws of international waters where a certain amount of distance from a country's land border is theirs in the water. And China's just going in and saying, no, this is all ours. So obviously that's a big problem. Monday, Colombia's capital of Bogota is initiating a 2-week extension of the super strict quarantine that they've had. And also, obviously, to curb the coronavirus. And in unusual facts this week, authorities in the city of Bayan Nur in the Chinese region of Inner Mongolia have issued a warning that the hospital reported a case of the bubonic plague. And this is not a good thing. And the alerts forbids hunting and eating of animals that could carry the plague, and also asks the public to report any suspected cases of a plague or fever to clear the causes. Just what we needed. Warren Buffett decided to donate to 5 philanthropies to receive the bulk of his fortune. This year, he's distributing 15.9 million shares of Berkshire Hathaway, valued at about $2.9 billion, brings the entire amount of his donations to $37 billion since 2006. Erdogan, which is the president of Turkey, has declared that the Hagia Sophia, a mosque on Friday, it was a museum. It's a beautiful building, one of the most visited things in Turkey, but now they're looking to change it. And a team of Brazilian researchers announced Friday the discovery of 115 Tried to finish the video and I couldn't. Of a 150 million year old fossil of a dinosaur that they otherwise did not know of, which is actually pretty interesting. It's in the northern state of Ceará. Absolutely beautiful beaches there. They have a desert with literally pools inside, which is amazing. So it's actually pretty interesting. They found a new species of dinosaur. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave your like there on YouTube. It helps with the algorithm, and we'll see you next week.